Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Real Science Exchange, the podcast where leading scientists and industry professionals meet over a few drinks to discuss the latest ideas and trends in animal nutrition. Today, in this episode, we're featuring the speakers of a symposia that's going to be presented here later this afternoon at the 2025 ADSA Annual Meetings. The title of the symposia is called the 50 plus years of dairy science research. This is actually going to be a legacy series episode to honor the life and career of Dr. Don Beitz and his contributions to dairy science, reflecting on advancements in nutrition, immunology, and biochemistry. The speakers will highlight key discoveries in Beitz's legacy in research and teaching. So what I'd like to do to start off, guys, we've got a very distinguished panel of people here joining us today to talk about Dr. Beitz, but I'd like to start down here with Dr. Jesse Goff. Jesse, if you'd kind of just give me, tell the folks out there who you are and a real quick discussion on how you met Don.
Well, Dr. Beitz and I go back to 1978, and that's when he started on my master's committee. I was working at the National Animal Disease Lab with Ron Hurst and Travis Littledyke, and I'll talk about that in my talk. But that was the start of calcium metabolism work. And Dr. Beitz had a student, 1974, Rich Goings, and Dr. Beitz did the first experiment on a low calcium diet to prevent milk fever. Up to that point, Ohio State was leading the charge saying high calcium diets cause milk fever, but nobody had ever done the experiment to show that you could prevent milk fever with a low calcium diet until that particular study. So that was kind of the introduction. Several other students came between me and then and 1978. And after that, we started doing more and more work on metabolism. Where does calcium go? How come cows have trouble with metabolism? And Dr. Beitz was there along the journey with us all. Funny story is my master's degree.
Uh-oh.
He probably doesn't remember this.
Uh-oh.
The question you asked me during the examination, how can you make glucose from fat?
Oh.
And he let me go for about an hour. And I had days of the blackboard. I had pathways going here and there. And he kept going. He kept saying, nope. Finally let me off the hook after a while. But he made me squirm. Then subsequently, over the next 30, 40 years, I've served on committees with Dr. Beitz since I stayed at Iowa State. And he asked the same question about every student.
Did you ever get it right? Did you, Jesse?
I figured it out
Yeah.
eventually.
You did fine.
To my right here, I've got Dr. Corwin Nelson. And thank you for joining us again. You were here yesterday. So kind of just a real quick introduction on yourself and how did you meet Dr. Beitz?
Yeah, I'm Corwin Nelson. I'm an associate professor at University of Florida. So I was a Beitz nutritional physiology alumni. He had a group called Nutritional Physiology, which I think we were all, I don't know when he started calling it that specifically, but as part of that group. So I actually got introduced to him. I was a biochemistry student. So I think many people know Don was very passionate about biochemistry. So he had in his career, he had a joint appointment between biochemistry and animal science, which is probably highly discouraged of faculty ever doing that type of appointment. But Don really wanted that arrangement, and I was one of those students that came from that arrangement. So as a biochemistry student, and he had a relationship too of a USDA scientist at the National Animal Disease Center, where he had a lot of his students went over to work. So I was also one of those. So is actually, I think originally I was going to go do some work with Jesse Goff or do a rotation with him, and Jesse is about to take on some other adventures at the time, so I ended up working with Johne at the USDA, and so I was co-advised between Johne and Don Beitz. So yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to him, and since we're doing interesting exam questions, the one that he asked me is the final question on my oral exam of my defense.
Oh no.
And he asked me how do hibernating bears excrete excess nitrogen.
Yeah,
He
was
did that
good
one year
question.
after year two.
I got that one too.
Okay, so I wasn't the only one. I thought, okay, I'm the only one.
Yeah.
And the same thing. I didn't spend an hour on it, but I came up with something. I don't even remember what I said. But yeah, that's.
Did you get it right?
They let me pass.
Is there? I'm kind of
Oh
interested.
my
Is there a quick
gosh.
answer to that question?
Oh my God.
They don't have excess nitrogen.
Ah,
That's the quick answer to it. So,
Mhm.
and whatever is there is from urea. It's incorporated back into amino acids. So they
Recycled
minimal.
through their gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They minimize skeletal protein metabolism.
Oh.
So
interesting.
I
Learn something every day.
I don't know how I answered it, but I got through it. So. But it goes to show the life of his career is curiosity. He was curious about so many things. So
Yeah, and creative, and got
Yep.
you to thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
Don, I'm going to skip over you for a
Okay.
second. We've got royalty with us here today. We've got both the president and vice president of the ADSA. I guess that changes tomorrow. What did you
Tonight.
say? Tonight? Okay, very well. We're going to start with the vice president down there. Jim, would you mind just kind of same thing, kind of giving us a real quick overview and how you met Don?
Yeah, so I'm Jim Drackley. I'm now a professor emeritus from the University of Illinois. I never thought I'd retire before Don Beitz, but I did. So I met DB I think in 1984 when I was looking for a PhD program, and started with Jerry Young, who was a partner in crime with Don for many years in 1985. And you didn't get Jerry Young without having Don Beitz too, so it was a great combination, great pairing. And so I was a nutritional physiology student as well, and did my doctorate with the pair. My favorite exam question was, if you were a cookie, what kind would you be and why? So that one kind of threw me for a loop, but
Oh my gosh.
So what
Yeah.
kind of cookie are you?
I don't even remember what I said. Probably an Oreo or something, but
Interesting. Great
Yeah.
story.
Gosh.
yeah.
All right. Mike?
So, Mike Vandehaar, I'm a professor of dairy nutrition at Michigan State. And I would not be in my position today if it wasn't for Don. I met Don in the winter of 1980. I was visiting a brother in the farm op program. I was a naive farm kid. I was a biology major at a little school called Dordt College. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew probably I should be a veterinarian, right? And I thought, well, I'm kind of interested in grad school. I went to Kildee Hall. I went to see Fred Foreman Friday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. No, I didn't make an appointment. I was naive, totally naive. Fred says, well, you ought to talk to Don Beitz. He calls Beitz up. This is 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. Beitz says, yeah, send him up here. He spent 2 hours talking to me. He was super excited about everything he did, as he has always been. And by the time I left, I went to work for him that summer, doing porcine stress syndrome work with Peggy Nepaldera. And then I got accepted to vet school, but Beitz and Young kept calling me, say, you ought to think about grad school. And I finally decided, yeah, I'll just do that instead. And I loved learning. Beitz is kind of infectious when it comes to understanding the world. And my first prelim question was, how does a microwave work? Because I waited, microwaves were just out, and I should have asked my wife the day before to help me make some brownies for the committee meeting, but I didn't. And that morning I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to have brownies for the committee meeting. And so we just had a new microwave. We saw the brownie box has a microwave version of the recipes, so we brought in microwave brownies, and that ended up being my first question. Fortunately, I got it right. Although I don't even know if they knew the answer, frankly. But I did. And I remember that we talked for 4 more hours, but Beitz said, yeah, when you got the microwave question, I knew you were going to pass anyway. But
Yeah, that was hilarious.
No, that's a great story. So, Don, it sounds like you're very good at asking questions and getting people to think. Was that the method to the madness there?
Yeah, I just enjoyed hearing people think on the edge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
yeah.
You know what?
can
I'd
I
like,
add something there?
yeah, absolutely.
You know what he was so good at, and you guys can come in, but he would ask questions that I'm pretty sure he knew the answer to, and you would have well, at least I had no idea, because he would ask it and then he would say, well, let's think. Or maybe I'd go in and say, how does this work? And he'd say, well, let's think about that. And then we would just work our way through to the answer. And I'm pretty sure he knew the answer, like what happens to insulin when you put glucose into the system. I'm sure he knew the answer, but he would just help you think through it, and you never felt stupid. It was always like a discovery. And I wish I could do that as well as Dr. Beitz.
Yeah, excellent. Don, one of the things I'd like to do, these gentlemen are going to be talking about your career and a lot of your work, but I'd like to get to know a little bit the young Don Beitz. Where'd you grow up? How in the world did you get into dairy science and or biology? And yeah, just kind of give us some background on your early years.
Okay. Well, I grew up on a dairy farm. We had Guernsey cattle, and in Stewartson, Illinois, which is about 10 miles north of Effingham, which is about 100 miles east of St. Louis. St. Louis Cardinal country. I'd like to emphasize that's one of my passions, I have to admit. So I didn't know what I was going to do as a young person, and I went to a one-room Lutheran school, and in that school, upperclassmen helped the teacher with teaching lower classes, and that's where I learned that I wanted to be a teacher. And my mom said, well, you should go to the University of Illinois, and help me fill out scholarship applications. So I did that, and went to the University of Illinois, lived in a dormitory, and then met a person at a fraternity, and I got into an agriculture fraternity at the University of Illinois called Neighbor House. It's where we did all our cooking and housework ourselves. $50 a month was our bill. I remember that, for room and board. So one of the turning points for me was my advisor was the person that took care of the judging team, dairy judging team. And I started out in dairy science. And I went in to see Dr. Ormiston the second semester for getting registered, and he always scared me. I was intimidated by professors. I thought, gee, many Christmas. And he pointed his finger at me, and I still remember that. And he said, Beitz, you're going to graduate school. And I said, Dr. Ormiston, what is graduate school? And he said, well, it means you're going to take a lot of chemistry, physics, and math. And I said, oh, I love those classes. And the second beautiful thing that he did for me as I look back is that he said, go down the hall and talk to Dr. Kendall. Dr. Kendall had a project of determining the stability of carotene in a harvest store silo in high moisture corn. And so every week I'd go out and get a sample of corn and bring it to the lab and assay the carotene content. And that's when I started getting comfortable around professors in dairy science at the University of Illinois. And, well, then it felt normal that I should stay there for a master's degree. And the main reason I wanted to stay there is that I met a young gal at the Lutheran Chapel on the campus who eventually became my wife. So I stayed there for a master's degree. I remember taking my master's degree exam on a Friday, corrected my thesis on a Saturday, Sunday got married, and Monday, headed to St. Louis with $100, and that's all I had, and that lasted till Thursday. And so and that had to include a Cardinal baseball and going to my favorite baseball player Stan Musial's restaurant. And my advisor at that time was Jack Albright, who managed the dairy farm and was an outstanding advisor. And he had been to a meeting at Michigan State University, and he recommended that I had decided I was going to Wisconsin for a PhD degree, and and Dr. Albright said, I think you should go to Michigan State and follow Lee Baldwin. He said Lee Baldwin was a biochemistry major and a dairy science major, and I think you fit in there really good. So I filled out an application, and lo and behold, I got an acceptance, and so I decided to go to Judy. My wife's name was Judy. Judy and I decided to head toward Michigan State for a PhD program where I majored in biochemistry and animal science, worked with Bill Thomas and Roy Emery in dairy science, and Willis Wood in biochemistry. Worked on research there, and when it came time to finish up for a PhD or get a job, I had 3 job offers, one to Jefferson Medical College and Ohio State University and University of Nebraska. And my wife and I decided we're headed to University of Nebraska. And I
Which
went
was a
to
biochem department.
for the biochemistry
Yeah.
department, yes. And I went to the laboratory that morning, I remember, to make the call, and I just couldn't do it. I had butterflies in my stomach. And I thought, what in the world's going on? So at noon, I called Judy, and I said, I just couldn't make the call. She and I had decided we were headed to Cornhusker country, and so I said, okay, I'll call at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and because we had a little baby to feed at the time, and she was more practical than I was, I suspect. And anyway, about 1:30, a man named Norm Jacobson from Iowa State University called and said, Beitz, how would you like to come to Iowa State for an interview? And I said, oh my gosh. And it's like divine guidance. I said, sure, I'll be there. And I remember flying to Ames, and Norm met me at the Ames airport. At that time, planes flew in with passengers. And I went around campus, met a couple people, did not give a seminar, which was amazing as I look back on that. And the next day, Norm Jacobson said, well, the job's yours if you want it. And I said, oh, okay. So I went home with that good news. And next thing is I ended up at Iowa State in the Department of Biochemistry and the Department of Animal Science. So I've had a professional career of having 2 bosses, you might say, and enjoying the teaching of biochemistry in the biochemistry department and doing research in animal science department and doing service activities in both departments. So that's where I got started in my professional career, and I've had such a fantastic time working with so many wonderful people. Fortunately, I joined a research group of 4 scientists, the Norm Jacobson, Jerry Young, Dare McGilliard, and myself. And looking back, the 4 of us worked together for many years, and I don't remember us ever getting loud voices and talking to each other. We got along extremely well. It was a fantastic environment for me of doing research and working with graduate students and others.
Yeah, that's a
Me.
great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay.
You know,
We
you-
almost lost him to biochem. Who knows what would have happened?
Well, I was kind of wondering that, right? What would have happened if you
Yeah.
went to Nebraska? What?
I don't know. That's interesting. I would have been a gung-ho Cornhusker fan, I'm sure, because I love football.
Yeah.
I don't think he would have abandoned the cows though. I think he in biochemistry he would have stayed connected to the cows somehow.
I think that's probably right.
Yeah, interesting. So you'd mentioned Judy and at least one baby at the time. Tell me a little bit about the family life over the years, Don.
Okay. Well, so our son David was born in Lansing. He was born with a medical condition that scared us, and so he survived. And we moved to Ames, and we're blessed with another child, a daughter Jenny, and now David, son David, and daughter Jenny have given us 5 grandchildren, and those 5 grandchildren have given me 8 great-grandchildren. Unfortunately, 2 years ago, my wife passed away, and so I'm enjoying family.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Good. Jesse, you gave a presentation, or will give a presentation, sorry about that, talk about Don's contribution to understanding transition cow hypocalcemia and other mineral challenges and strategies for prevention. Can you kind of talk through that? You talked a little bit about it earlier, but what are some of the key contributions that you'd highlight?
New research is changing everything we thought we knew about choline's impact on the cow and her calf, and top scientists have a lot to say about it. They are presenting new research that supports choline as a required nutrient to optimize milk production, choline as a required nutrient to support a healthy transition, choline as a required nutrient to improve calf health and growth, and choline as a required nutrient to increase colostrum quantity. This new research is solidifying choline's role as a required nutrient for essentially every cow, regardless of health status, milk production level, or body condition score. Learn more about the science that is changing the game and the choline source that is making it happen. Reassure precision-release choline from Balchem. Visit balchem.com/scientistsay to learn more.
It's funny that things are coming around. I remember one particular paper was the low calcium diets, and he had Rich Goings do it. Howard Green followed that up, and at that time we had the vitamin D metabolism unit going, so figured out 125 vitamin D was a key part of that. Tom Kachura did low phosphorus diets, prevent milk fever. Now we find that there's products out here now that are meant to bind phosphorus in the diet and prevents milk fever. It's funny, this stuff was known. That paper came out in 1982, and it took 40 years for it to become an everyday thing on the farm. All kinds of things like that with vitamin D. It wasn't just cows. He liked cows, I know that. We all like cows. But all the vitamin D work, all those discoveries with the new forms of vitamin D, the 124-25 that was patented for use in humans for osteoporosis, and it was tested for a while, and it was sold in Japan, I think, for a while, and then it kind of left the market because of better alternatives came along. But all that vitamin D metabolism stuff, Dr. Beitz was right there with a fellow named Ron Hurst, and that was a whole bunch of grad students figuring out metabolism of vitamin D, which eventually allowed us to get a pretty good handle on how to conquer hypocalcemia. I think it's easily conquered, but apparently that's not happening out in the field yet. And all those kinds of discoveries, things that, again, the breadth of this guy to expand the knowledge everywhere. I'm going to talk a little bit about the work you did on vitamin D and meat tenderness. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
There had been a study that showed if you gave a cow a bottle of calcium intravenously and then you slaughtered it, the meat was much more tender. Calcium activates an enzyme called calpain. Could we do it with vitamin D? So Jaden Montgomery, Monica Foote, there were Amy Wirtz. All these people spent time trying to figure out how to use vitamin D injections or oral administration and time it right so that the animal was tender. And it worked. It was crazy. But it's never really been approved for use because of the metabolites that were being used. Now it should be revisited because those are all approved now. So we got some work to do yet.
I would like that. In fact, that all, I remember meeting with Ron Hurst on a Saturday morning, and I said, Ron, I really think that calcium can activate the calpain system, or vitamin D can activate the calpain system to make meat more tender. He said, let's do it. And Ron said, it should work. So we got the experiment started, and good results.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little digression here, but Balchem markets a product called K2 on the human side, and they talk a lot about an interaction with D3 and calcium. Is that a thing in dairy cattle, or could it be?
We thought about that. It's part of the bone growth deal in stronger bones. You need the K2 to make the calcium binding protein of bone. We thought perhaps there were some problems with that in cattle, but we could never find them. So that project kind of died out. Maybe it could be resurrected, but
Maybe it's. I was just thinking about that because what they do is they talk a lot about K2 being involved in actually pulling calcium out of arteries and the blood, and so they market it almost as a kind of a heart kind of a product.
atherosclerosis
Yeah.
type thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
That one thing I'm going to throw in quickly, Dr. Beitz and his family. This is how bad things are and inbred in Iowa, maybe. His daughter, Johne, was the very first babysitter for my kids. We finally took a night off. And he said, oh, I've got a daughter who'll babysit for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good babysitter, I'm sure.
Yeah, the kids were alive at the end. That's all that counts.
So, Corwin, you're giving a presentation called Advances in Understanding Bovine Immunology from the work of Don Beitz and his colleagues. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that work, it started somewhat with relation to vitamin D, actually. Don Beitz had, I believe he was a postdoc at the time, Tim Reinhardt. Came to work with Don Beitz as a postdoc in the early 1980s, I believe that was. And Tim did some work where he identified the vitamin D receptor in the thymus of the bovine thymus. And that stimulated some work then on looking at the role of vitamin D in the immune system. And that was a novel idea. So it's for both vitamin A and vitamin D and their role in the immune system. And that generated some work along those lines of immune development. And then that kind of developed in some other areas. So he again, like I said earlier, he worked with a lot of the scientists at the USDA. So in addition to Tim Reinhardt, who eventually became a scientist at the USDA, they did work together. Obviously, they did a lot of work with Ron and Jesse over the years, and they were all part of that work too. But another scientist by the name of Brian Noneke, they did a lot of work on immune development in young calves, so looking at growth rates of calves and how that influenced immunity. And then another lady by the name of Judy Stable worked on Johne's disease. So Don had a number of students that worked in relation to Johne's disease in collaboration with Judy Stable there at the USDA. And then, I was part of that too, where I went over there, started working with Johne Lapalus. Originally, I thought I'd like proteomics. I was going to start, and then Johne Lapalus came to me along with Tim Reinhardt and said, "Hey, this is a mid 2005, 2006, somewhere in there, and there's just some papers that come out really highlighting vitamin D in the immune system. It kind of been in the works for years, but all of a sudden, for some reason, it just caught on." And they said, "Hey, why don't you take on this project of vitamin D in the immune system in cattle?" And I'm still working on it today, so shows you how far it's taken me. So
Well, the vitamin D has really gotten some legs in the human industry as well recently. So I'm just kind of curious, is there a lot more work yet to do
Oh
in
yeah,
dairy? Yeah.
yeah. We keep going with it. So
Yeah.
I got a USDA project on it right now that's focused on the role of vitamin D in immune development in animals in early life and how that carries them on through their lifetime.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think I'm going to go down to Jim this time. Jim, you've got a presentation coming up, Advances in Understanding Fatty Liver Ketosis from the work of Don Beitz and his colleagues.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that Dr. Beitz was always interested in was the peripartal period or the transition period diseases. So the work on milk fever is part of that, and with his interest in lipid metabolism, which went way back, did a lot of studies with fatty acid synthesis in cattle and other species. So he was always interested in lipid metabolism. Jerry Young was interested in carbohydrate metabolism. So the two of them, it was natural to kind of gravitate to ketosis interest, and wrote a review in 1981 with Travis Littledike that covered all the transition diseases, and one of those was ketosis. So they wanted to study it, but needed a model because it was difficult to find spontaneous ketosis, and so they worked to develop a model of ketosis that relied on a slight degree of feed restriction and feeding a ketone body precursor, 1,3-butane-diol. And that was reasonably effective in the initial experiments. It was very effective in inducing ketosis. And along with that came fatty liver. And so they developed the interest in trying to understand which came first and how those two conditions interacted. So they had that work with Scott Mills and Randy Lyle. And then they were looking at other models. So they tried to induce ketosis in steers by using fluorizin, which causes glucose to be excreted in the urine. So it creates a demand for glucose, and also the administration of the 1,3-butane-diol as a ketone body precursor. And they got a lot of clinical signs of ketosis in the steers, but that didn't go too much further. But they looked at liver metabolism and found evidence that when the ketosis occurred in cattle, the ability of liver tissue to make glucose was depressed. And so that was a pretty novel finding. Then the next big area that they worked on was, well, I came along in there, somewhere in there, and added some information about the ketosis model. Then they got off into glucagon. I think Jerry had always had an interest in glucagon and what it did, and so they had a number of experiments looking at glucagon as a possible preventative or treatment for fatty liver and ketosis, and that there were several experiments that did that, and it appeared to be very effective in preventing fatty liver from occurring early postpartum. And I know you've been doing some other things with University of Vermont, the in vitro system, on an in vitro model of fatty liver. So Beitz was the quintessential collaborator. He has so many collaborations with scientists in so many different areas. So that's one of the things I always admired about him, and a huge stable of graduate students. I kind of took it for granted when I was a graduate student, but I don't know how many you had. There was a dozen or more. And you knew what every one of them was doing and could keep up with all of them. And I didn't really appreciate that until I started in my own career, and I had 7 grad students at one time, and it almost killed me. So I don't know how you did it.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim, that's a great segue to the next part, right? We've talked a lot about his legacy and science, but perhaps maybe the greatest legacy is what he imparts to other people and his students. And so Dr. Vandehaar is giving a talk called The Legacy of Don Beitz and His Passion for Teaching and All Things Dairy, Nutrition, Biochemistry, and Life. So why don't you tell us about that, Mike?
Well, this was a fun talk to try to put together, but there's a lot to cover. And the thing that I noticed as I went through his resume, and I knew this, but I just hadn't really looked at it hard before. I mean, we have 3 areas here that he's made contributions in, but he did a lot of work on milk fatty acid composition and how do you affect milk fatty acids. Why doesn't glucose get used for making a lot of milk fat de novo? He has a lot of papers on cholesterol metabolism and how can you decrease cholesterol content of not just dairy products, but all animal foods. A bunch of work on meat quality, but not just the vitamin D. What else? Oh, mitochondrial metabolism. A whole lot of studies with Gene Freeman on mitochondrial metabolism. And I'm sure I just missed something, but it's just amazing.
Porcine stress syndrome.
Yeah, oh yeah, the porcine stress syndrome. And all of it, the common denominator is he would find other people, or maybe they found him, because he was the biochemist, and it was just in his head. And I know now, looking back in my career, when you teach something all the time, you just understand it. And so biochemistry was his contribution. And he had, I believe the number is 107 graduate students where he was major professor. Now for some of them, like me, he was a co-major professor. But he was always there. When you needed to talk to him, he would, I don't remember his door being closed like he was busy. And frankly, I don't know how you did so much stuff. I do remember him meeting with me, and then he had to run to the biochemistry building to get to his class on time. I remember seeing you run quite often across campus. And I asked his daughter, Johne, so where did this guy get all his energy? And she said, well, first off, it's obvious his kids adore him. I mean, he's got a great relationship with his kids. Some scientists put all their efforts into their science and their family suffers. I don't think that happened with Don. And he was active in his church, active in Kiwanis, went to his kids' ball games. And Johne said, I always thought my dad was normal. At some point along the way, I realized he wasn't. She said he would get up on Monday morning and he would be giddy. This is the word she used. He was giddy to get to work. And I thought that was normal, and I realized it's not. But, I think just his questioning, the way he would question us and just get us to think mechanistically, how does this work? That was his secret.
Yeah. Great. Don, you've heard a lot of great comments about you, your work, the passion for working. Did they leave anything out? Any gaps there?
Oh, I don't know. I'm floored. I don't think I deserve all those
Oh, yeah.
positive comments.
This is one. I tried to organize this symposium like this 5 years ago, and he said, no, I wouldn't feel like I should have that. And this year, Gail Carpenter and the Iowa State faculty just submitted it to the overall program committee and told him, Don, we're doing this symposium. So he didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I know. That's right.
So humility
Yeah, I
is a
can
big part of
You can
Don
tell.
Beitz.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh,
One of the things I think it's very unusual and a failure on my own part, for sure. He was our biggest cheerleader. He promoted us in every way possible. 3 of us here were serving on National Academy of Sciences papers only because Dr. Beitz put in a word for us. It wasn't like anybody knew me when I did all that stuff. And always promoted us students and always sided with us no matter what, which is just amazing.
And he keeps, every year at Christmas, he sends out a newsletter to all his former students. Now, I did discover a lot of those emails are wrong, because a lot of them bounced back to me.
Yeah.
And to Jesse's point there too, you come like this the ADSA annual meeting, and I remember coming as a student my first time, and Don made it a point to connect me to people, and he was always very good at making sure you got connected to people, and so that was something valuable I learned from that too.
I would just like to add, so he was president of ADSA. He was active in the leadership of American Society of Animal Science, CAST, Council for Agricultural Science and Technology, American Meat Society, and I know Iowa branch of the American Heart Association. And I know I'm missing some here.
Nutrition.
American Society of Nutrition, but he's been a leader in 7 or 8 major societies.
And served in the National Academy of Science
and served in
Council on Animal Nutrition. So
yeah.
all those things.
Wow.
We don't know how you did it all.
I don't either. I love science. I love working with people. I love promoting people. At this time, I've been chair of the awards committee in animal science and biochemistry departments. And I love helping people get recognition that they deserve. So it makes me feel good to see all of these folks do well. I'm very proud.
And I forgot to mention, I think he's up to about 16,000 students that he's taught biochemistry to.
Yeah, it's added up over the years.
He's gonna have one more if he'll stick around one more year. My son, he's the advisor for my son who decided not to go into veterinary medicine but biochemistry.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a joy.
Yeah. This has been a joy. I really enjoyed this, enjoyed getting to know you, Don. As we kind of get ready to wrap up here, what I'd like to do is we'll just go around the table here and have you guys just share, some final thoughts that you think that our audience ought to know about Dr. Beitz. I know we've shared a lot of others, but, just maybe some top line things, maybe some heartfelt comments about Dr. Beitz. And Jim, if you don't mind, we'll just start down there.
Our last call question is sponsored by AminoSure XM Precision Release Methionine, the next generation in amino acid balancing. With AminoSure XM, you can save up to 5 cents per cow per day on your methionine investment. Try it today and receive an additional 2.5 cents per cow per day savings with Balchem's limited time rebate offer. Contact your Balchem representative to learn more.
Well, as the others have said, I owe a lot to Dr. Beitz for my training and some really serious conversations along the way about directions I should go and so on. I'm going to finish my talk with some characteristics of Dr. Beitz, words that come into mind when I think of him. So there's just so many good qualities. One of the things, another little story about him. One day at work, he went out to at lunchtime. He was going to go home for lunch, and panicked because his car was gone. and ran back into the building, called Judy, said, "Judy, the car is gone." And Judy kind of clucked her tongue and said, "Don, you rode your bike today." So there was a lot on his mind at all times. But no, he's just been a great friend and mentor and a tremendous contributor to the ADSA and science in general. So I'm honored to be able to say that I was a mentee of Don Beitz.
I think, the legacy of Don Beitz is the way that you have a big impact, or at least one way you can have a big impact, is by seeing what examining or thinking about a student and encouraging them in what they're good at. And he's been amazing at that. And his impact is how he impacted other people. And I think all of us here, I mean, we love the guy because of the way he encouraged us.
I would kind of touch, on that same thing, and you mentioned his, how he really cared about his family, and his kids really appreciate what he did for them and how much he cared for them, and so he was a mentor in that way, and it went through all aspects of his life and what he did, and it gave me a lot of direction and just modeled for me. I had a young family in graduate school, and I remember going over to the parties he would host, the dinners he'd host for his grad students, and kids would be there, and he would welcome them and just be very, encouraging and get to know them too. And so he stayed up to date on them over the years. So it's just fantastic, and just giving me that model of, hey, here's how to carry that and do that the same way.
Excellent comments, Jesse.
It's going to be hard to sum this up. There have probably been other scientists who've maybe been better bench scientists, but I don't think the reason we're here is not for that. It's because of the way he treated us, made us feel. This sounds hokey, but Dr. Beitz is rather spiritual. There are people who try to be good examples. He's been the good example. Doesn't have to, it's something I remember thinking that all the time I had students. There's the example I should follow. Not very successful, I'm afraid, but not like he was.
Yeah, you asked earlier about it if we had any incriminating storage. I don't know. Are there any? I don't know if anybody. Maybe something you might have to ask his family. He might come. But,
well, he cheats. Yeah. He cheats at basketball. He takes an extra step. How old were you when you finally gave up basketball?
Well, I was 60 and I started developing hip issues. So. I love that game. It's good noon hour activity or early morning activity. So. And
he didn't just play basketball at the state gymnasium. We would be there too. We weren't allowed to play in his game. He was in the elite league game.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, he was good.
I don't know.
That's awesome. Don, we've heard some very nice stories about you. I'm going to give you an opportunity to just kind of wrap things up. I know you're a humble gentleman. You're not going to want to say a lot, but what would you like our audience to know about Don Beitz?
Well, I've been very blessed. I had great parents that stimulated a good work ethic, and they taught me to enjoy life and care about others, and I've gained a great amount of satisfaction of working with other people and watching them do well. It humbles me greatly to see these folks make all these comments about me. I'm not sure I deserve half of them, but anyway, it makes me very proud to see what they've done in life and that they're enjoying life. And I've had a great career, and I thank all the people that I've worked with over the years, my family, all the different kinds of activities I've had have been very satisfying to me. And I don't know, I don't know how to say thank you to everybody and all these comments that they're making. I've been very blessed.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you. This has been awesome. I've loved hearing the stories. Appreciate you guys joining us today. To our audience out there, I hope you've had as much fun as I have. This has been great. I hope you learned something. Hope you had some fun. And I hope to see you next time here at Real Science Exchange, where it's always happy hour and you're always among friends.
We'd love to hear your comments or ideas for topics and guests. So please reach out via email at anh.marketing@balchem.com with any suggestions, and we'll work hard to add them to the schedule. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating on your way out. You can request your Real Science Exchange t-shirt in just a few easy steps. Just like or subscribe to the Real Science Exchange and send us a screenshot along with your address and t-shirt size to anh.marketing@balchem.com. Balchem's Real Science Lecture Series of webinars takes place on the first Tuesday of every month, with the top research and nutrition topics that will impact your business. We also include small ruminant, monogastric, and companion animal-focused topics throughout the year. Visit balchem.com/realscience to see the upcoming topics and to register for future webinars. You can also access past webinars and search for the topics most important to you.